Welcome, one and all, to the latest edition of Signals from Mars. I'm your host, Victor, and joining me is Mr. Jeremy Weltman. Jeremy, how are you today?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Victor. Nice warm day here in the UK, and you're in the home of metal as usual, which is the United Kingdom. How are you doing? You've been away.
I've been away. This is the first time we've recorded since June, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
June, maybe May. I don't even remember. But this is just like riding a bike. Jeremy and I are back in September to talk about July releases. So we've still got August coming your way, which we still have not recorded either. But yeah, we're going to recap some of what came out over the summer here. And starting out on July 5th, which we had releases from Kissin' Dynamite, Visions of Atlantis, Orden Ogan. I hope I said that right, Brad Dahl. Orden Ogan, okay. Tommy Vex, Nyctophobia, Kryptos, Zastor, the Triceratops, Octa- Octoploid, Mine Road, EPs from Palmar de Troya, reissues from Slayer, Clutch, and Fallujah, and a live album from Slayer. Jeremy, what did you listen to this week?
Yeah, so I began by listening to the classic rock sounds of Kissing Dynamite, the German band that, as you know, emerged on the scene in 2006, producing albums consistently every 2 years now. And this is their eighth studio album. It's called Back with a Bang. Nothing unexpected with this one. It's very solid, glitzy, sort of classic rock hair metal music. 12 songs on it. It's very proficient. The singer, Hans Brown, I think his name is Hans Brown, sounds a little sort of old school Bon Jovi. He sure has the sort of rock star looks that might appeal to Mrs. W. Uh,
Okay.
but is it any good, I hear you cry? Well, yes, there are some fine melodies and choruses. It's all sort of kind of throwback stuff, nothing new, but it's a very enjoyable listen nevertheless. So that was quite good. And I then moved on quickly to Decimator by Kryptos, which I think you mentioned to me, Victor.
Yes.
Yeah, you did. A band from India formed in the late 90s that are self styled pioneers of India's modern heavy metal movement, apparently. Because obviously I didn't know very much about them before until you put me onto it. This is their seventh album. It treads a familiar path of quite sort of tight riffs, strained vocals you'd expect to hear on sort of hundreds of these sort of 1980s new wobbin bands. It has a bit of a sort of a nice sort of real comforting glow about it as well. It's sort of good to hear something that sounds like this, and it's a real sort of solid throwback material, I think. Unlike many sort of bands out there, it has sort of enough grit and edge to be sort of relevant as well. I think that's kind of why you sort of pointed me towards this band. And so although it's sort of rather straightforward type of music, it's and quite simple with sort of the melodies and lyrics. It was pretty good. So yeah, that was a good suggestion by you. And then after dipping into sort of a few death and black metal albums during the week and wondering what, I was going to choose for my album of the week, I came across something really interesting. It was called Tomorrow's Sky by a band I've not heard of before called Mine Road from
Okay.
Dublin, Ireland.
Wow.
Apparently, they went on hiatus for a while. Some of the band members emigrated to Australia and the US, and they came back in 2019. Apparently, there are definitely sort of US, Aussie, and Irish influences all mixed in here on a really good hard rocking album. I guess you can sort of think Slash, think Phil Campbell, think Black Star Riders, rock and roll, that kind of music. So I quite enjoyed that one, and that's my pick of the week.
Excellent. Yeah, for me, I listened to the Cryptos, which again I don't remember if it came out in July or June actually. It may be one of these albums that because I received the promo, I The dates may have changed. I don't remember. I listened to that. I listened to the Orden Ogan as well. Um, those are the two that kind of stood out to me the most. There's one track off of the Order of Fear, which is the Orden Ogan album, called Moon Fire, which I've listened to quite a lot while on vacation. It was kind of in steady rotation there. There was a few songs that were in that rotation. But I think I'll have to go with Decimator from Cryptos because I think it's got more songs. It's got like 5 or 6 songs that I really enjoy. The Order of Fear has like 2 songs that I really like. The rest is kind of paint by numbers, symphonic rock. It really isn't that
Mm,
that big of a deal. So, yeah, that's going to be my pick for
cool.
for July 5th. Cool. So, July 12th, we had new albums from Mr. Big, Unearthed, Tim Montana, Northbound, In Heart's Wake, Wind Waker, Deep Al Brindle, Van Held, or Van Helg. I don't know how you pronounce that. Palace, Spectra, Plutocracy, Plutocracy Planet, Ver and Zijda, American Overdose, Butterside, Turin, and Obscure. Live albums from Amorphous and Nicolo Kotsev's Nostradamus. Reissues from Testament. They reissued their first 2 albums. Reissue from Candlebox. And A Day to Remember, the 15th anniversary of Homesick. Now, what did you listen to for this week, Jeremy?
Yeah, so this week I sort of stuck with Frontiers for a hat trick of albums. First up was the poppy rock sounds of a band from London, England called Palace. I don't know if they're from sort of Crystal Palace area, but anyway, they've released 3 albums prior to this, I believe. I thought I'd hate it, but this band can certainly write an 80s soft rock tune with great melodies and choruses as well. So of course it won't appeal to the average death metal fan, but don't dismiss it if you like hook-laden 80s tunes with that unmistakable 80s keyboards and drums. It verges a little bit on New Romantics occasionally, but just about steers clear. And hell, can these guys write good songs? So, it was certainly worth an hour of my time or just less. I also dug into the Mr. Big album called 10. This band obviously dates back to 1988, and to be honest, never really made that much of an impression on me. But it does have Billy Sheehan and Paul Gilbert involved, so it's a band certainly worth checking out, I think, because of the names there. It's really it's quite a listenable offering too, I think, but it's on the softer side of hard rock and metal as well, and it does have some fairly well crafted songs, but overall, I wasn't completely taken by it. My favorite of the lot really was an album called Hypnotized by Spectra. This
Okay.
was a really enjoyable melodic offering. This time it's a band from Brazil. It appears to be their second album. It follows on from their debut Overload in 2021. These guys can really play. They've got a really great vocalist too, who's worked with Jeff Scott Soto, who we know. And added to that is, there's some really good production that really sort of raises the songs into, what I call the Premier League. Because often, you can listen to these bands and, you think, oh, they're okay, but they're, nothing special. And I know sometimes we criticize Frontiers really for putting together sort of makeshift bands and releasing stuff that is a bit forgettable. But when they do get it right, they get it right. And Spectre are a really decent melodic rock outfit. I really like them. So yeah, that's my album of the week.
Okay. I got to listen to the Mr. Big album 10. This can fall under the Black Country Communion where the parts should give you something different, in my opinion. But yeah, they've got songs here and there that I enjoy, and there's like one song that I think is really good off of this album. The rest is I've heard all before. There's kind of no need for this for me personally. I'm not a big fan either. Got to listen to Juniper by Northbound. It is a pop punk album, kind of run of the mill pop punk, nothing out of the ordinary. Plutocracy Planet, self titled album. Got to listen to that. It's a mixture of a bunch of different things, but doesn't really do enough to kind of stand out. And then the other one that I listened to is American Overdose with Artificial Infection. That's self released. And it's a mixture of industrial and symphonic metal. To be honest, there isn't really anything that sticks out to me this week to say this is my album of the week. For me, it was kind of a down week. Nothing that absolutely sucked, but nothing that
Hmm.
really stood out to say, "Oh yeah, I put my seal of approval on that one."
Yeah,
So,
that could happen.
yeah, yeah, we've had that happen a few times in the
Mhm.
past. So moving on to the 19th, we had new albums from Deep Purple, Paul Di'Anno's Warhorse, Orange Goblin, the Chris Slade Timeline. Wow, that's one that I really wanted to listen to, and I totally forgot about. That's what vacation does to you. Patriarchs in Black, Rivers of Nil, Her Head's on Fire, Flat Black, which features Jason Hook, former guitarist of Five Finger Death Punch, Sable Hill, Ceremony of Silence, Worshipper, Ruby Ate the Fig, The Stabbing Jabs, EPs from Calling All Captains and Tracheotomy, reissues. There's one, two, three, four reissues from In Flames, one from Mr. Bungle, and one from Pussifer. So, Jeremy, we overlap on a few of these this week.
Yeah.
What's your opinion, or what
Yeah.
stood out to you?
So yeah, I checked out Paul Di'Anno's Warhorse first of all. Obviously, the former Iron Maiden frontman with his self-titled album. Plus, it mentions that it's with Madaraka or Madaracha and Pupi. Presumably, some contractual obligation there with the two relatively unknown Croatian musicians, but they do the best on it. But I don't know why they have to be mentioned. This isn't terrible, but it comes close. On too many occasions for my liking, on too many songs. I mean, for one thing, I think Di'Anno really struggles with his voice. I don't think he ever had a very strong voice, but obviously when he's a young man and with Iron Maiden, it had that sort of nice punky feel. I think he lets it down a little bit on the mix and production, which are not quite right to my ears as well. I think it's done on the cheap. The website notes that they've spent 2 years perfecting this album, but the songs, although they're not actually lacking in melody, they're mostly quite sort of basic, and the lyrics are a lot to be desired.
Mhm.
The cover song "Precious" has something about it, so maybe they should have done more of that than sort of dated old school metal stuff So maybe it's just best really listening to a deep Depeche Mode album than picking this up, because I wasn't very impressed, and I didn't expect to be. So my second album of the week was more rewarding. I think it was "Strange Desires" by Her Head's on Fire. This is a sort of indie post-hardcore band, a quartet featuring members of other bands I've not really heard of. I couldn't find anything at all on where they're from. This band, they're either from the US or they're from England, but I have no idea. It was very typical indie music for the 80s and 90s. It had sort of occasional glimpses of Oasis there. They had some good songs at varying speeds. It was well worth my time listening to it, and hopefully the listeners out there will find something in it, even if it's not in the normal sort of hard rock and metal sphere. It was worth listening to. I really couldn't fault the album of the week, even though it's not spectacular, but it is very interesting. It's the album Equals One by Deep Purple. I think it's worth remembering that the band was actually formed 56 years ago, which is almost my age. You know, I was 2 years old when they were formed. They're still featuring the original drummer Ian Pace. They have Mark II Purple stalwarts Roger Glover and Ian Gillan in the band still. Their recent albums have been sort of fairly loose affairs, various members sort of unleashing their creative juices and just sort of playing whatever they like, really. This is no exception. It's sort of an eclectic mix of boogie, blues, soul, full influences, you know, all sort of bit of prog there, bit of rock, you know. It's all very quintessentially Purple, though. It's got that sort of distinctive keyboard sound, which is now the domain of Don Airey, who, by the way, like Gillan, Glover, and Pace, is in his late 70s now. You have to remember that how old these guys are. It's not a metal album at all, and the rockier moments now are sort of few and far between these days. But you do get real heaps of outstanding melodies, really super production on their albums. And it's my choice of the week in what, you know, I think is really a super year for British rock music. And, you know, long may it continue.
All right. So real quickly, Her Head's on Fire is from New York City.
Oh, there we go. Thanks. You've solved the puzzle.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I got to listen to two of those three. I listened to the Paul Di'Anno. So the first track, Warhorse, is okay.
Yeah.
The Depeche Mode covers the best song on the album, I think, Precious.
Totally agreed.
Why on earth he decided to cover Tequila is
Yeah.
beyond me. I was thinking, first of all, recovering alcoholic, all these issues with alcohol in the past. I'm like, he's got a song called Tequila. This doesn't make sense. Like, okay, but let me give it a listen.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, the song starts, and I'm like, this is the song from the Pee Wee Herman movie. This is Tequila. This is what Paul Rubens would come out and dance to on the Gong Show in the late 70s. I'm like, oh my God, seriously? Made zero sense to me, but man, what else? I listened to the Patriarchs in Black. That had some really cool songs on it as well. Listen to the Deep Purple. I was driving to the Limp Bizkit concert when we were listening to this, and my youngest son says to me, "This isn't bad, but I think it's kind of boring." He says to me. I said, "Son, it's British hard rock. It's a bunch of guys in their 70s. They're doing what they can." The true standout to me is Simon McBride on this album because his solos are fantastic. They're a lot better than what I expected. So he's got some really like balls to the walls, fiery solos on here where I'm not the hugest Deep Purple fan, but I don't recall Steve Morris doing those types of solos. I think he wanted to steer so far away from Richie Blackmore that he kind of didn't do some of that stuff. And I think Simon McBride has fit in really well in bringing that aspect back to the band. What else did I listen to here? Oh, well, it would be my pick of the week. It would be Science, Not Fiction by the British band Orange Goblin. I've been a fan of theirs for such a long time. Great stoner rock, stoner metal, doom metal, however you want to categorize them. Just powerful, huge riffs, great melodies. They remind me a lot of The Quill because they've kind of drank from the same kind of fountain, that Black Sabbath fountain. And you can always count on at least half of an album being really good and memorable. So this week, my pick is Orange Goblin with Science Not Fiction. Awesome. So let's move on here to the last week in July. And I kind of miscategorized this. Funny because I listened to a live album almost right off the bat here. But anyway, studio albums from Category 7, the debut album that features John Bush, Jason Bittner from Shadows Fall. He just left Overkill. Mike Orlando, Phil Demmel, who's best known for Machine Head and Violence, and Jack Gibson, who's best known for Exodus on bass. New albums from, let's see, Bisto Blanco, but I think that's the wrong date because I remember not being able to find the album. Verney, which is, I just mentioned Overkill. That's Didi Verney from Overkill, his new solo album. New albums also from Dream Evil, Disloyal, Duskwalker, Iron Flame, Scald, Mountaineer, Wizard Tattoo, Beyond All Hope. How the hell do you pronounce this? Oh, Orison Space Collective. Reissues from Sacred Reich, which I have in a box behind me, which I have not opened yet. Actually, same with the Category 7. Reissue from Bad Brains, King Buzzo, EP from El Nino, and live albums from Ghost, the soundtrack to Right Here, Right Now, which is a live album in concert, per se, and Pete Townsend live in concert, 1985 through 2001. Jeremy, what did you listen to this week, and what stood out to you?
Yeah, so just a couple for you, really. The first one, I listened to Metal Gods by the Swedish metal band Dream Evil.
Okay.
For the most part, I thought this was sort of kind of bog standard heavy metal, sort of come power metal. Good production, some Judas Priest kind of edges to it, a singer that is really well suited to this type of music. And overall, I thought it was a really, even if it was sort of shorter, being a real standout. Though it did point me to some of their early releases, and it was worth the time digging in, because I kind of like their debut album and one or two other bits and pieces along the way as well. So yeah, they're quite an enjoyable band, but nothing spectacular. My album of the week, though, just sort of moving straight on to that because I didn't listen to a lot in this week, was the Right Here, Right Now, the original motion picture soundtrack, the live album from Ghost, which I thought was really good. I mean, this is a band I've slowly sort of come to appreciate in recent years, particularly their latest studio album, which I thought was outstanding. There are a smattering of songs from that particular album on this, and what you get is a really sort of good best of package. There's 18 songs, 1 hour 30 minute set, packed full of really great songs, played well. Whatever the studio trimmings may have been done to kind of improve it, we don't know. But whatever you think about how Ghost the band has kind of risen to become a sort of really strong premier act in recent years, you can't get away from the fact that they're real performers with a unique sound to their output. I've seen them actually twice myself, and once in a tent at Leeds Festival, and again on a bigger stage supporting Metallica at Manchester City's ground. And they're really good. It's a reputation well deserved, and I really enjoyed this album. It's one you can play and play again, and I guess in a different time, a different time zone, a different sort of era, you maybe would be talking about Ghost along with UFO, Thin Lizzy, all those great live albums, because I think they kind of missed out on that era. And if they don't be as massive as that as those bands, it's only because they're just at the wrong time period, but they deserve it.
So I got to listen to the Ghost album, and I just want to dovetail with what you just said because I think the album is great. I think your assessment is really good because you listen to a lot of live albums nowadays and they sound so homogenized. They sound boring and slow, and like the band is just fulfilling a contract.
Hmm.
And with Right Here, Right Now, some of these songs are sped up, they're played a little differently, so it's kind of what we used to get when we listened to Strangers in the Night and Live After Death and Kiss Alive 1 and 2, where it's a different take on the albums, and you kind of don't care if they were touched up in the studio because the feel, the energy is there, and makes you remember the actual live show. So this is kind of the first live album in a really long time that I listen to on a consistent basis. I listened to this album quite a few times while on vacation. So this is a really, really, really good album. Um the Sacred Reich album that I mentioned that I received, Heal, which is a reissue, that's a good album. That was their last album before they released Awakening in, I think, 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Not a bad album, not their strongest, but still has some really good material on it. The Vernie Dreadful Company album is really cool. It's Dee Dee doing Ramones and Misfits and stuff like that. So if you're into that kind of music, Dee Dee does it justice. And my pick of the week, it could easily be the Ghost, just like you. But I'm gonna go with category 7, just because I've listened to quite a few songs off of this on vacation as well. Like I said, this is the quote unquote supergroup with John Bush and a bunch of other people. There's some really good music on here. Mike Orlando is usually shredding all over the place, and the whole band is great. This will finally give him, I think, an outlet for a lot of the Anthrax material that he hasn't played in many years. But I'm curious to see. I mean, they're signed to Metal Blade. Is this a one-off? If this is going to be a band that, yeah, they plan on recording 2, 3 albums. Is this a we'll wait and see after we go out and tour? Is there a demand? I don't know. I'm interested to find out where they're going with all of this, but definitely check it out. And it sounds nothing like Thin Lizzy. I'm sorry, but they originally said this is like them doing Thin Lizzy. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of more like John Bush doing thrash again. Is more what it's like to me. But what do I know? So real quickly here, let's just recap some of our picks here. For the week of the 5th, you picked Kissin' Dynamite. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I picked Cryptos with Decimator.
No, I picked Mine Road. Kissing Diamond. Sorry, Kissing Dynamite was the first one
Okay,
album I mentioned, but Mine Road. Yeah,
okay. My mistake. Mine Road with Tomorrow's Sky. Okay.
that's the one.
The second week, I didn't pick anything, and you picked.
The next one was Spectra, Hypnotized.
Okay, cool. The 19th, you went with
I went with Deep Purple.
yeah, okay. And I went with Orange Goblin, Science Not Fiction.
Mm.
And then for the last week in July, the 26th,
So it was Ghost.
yeah, and I went with category 7, but that Ghost album is great as
Mm.
well. So you can't go wrong with either one.
Mm.
Um so let's see here. Jeremy's always great about sending me different items to discuss, and unfortunately my browser kind of just froze. So I got to look at the points that you sent on my phone.
Yeah, I can remember them.
So let's see. Your first point here, our gigs. You have Lincoln Park, Rockwitch.
Yeah, because obviously you went to see a gig in the US, so interested. Well, I think everybody else would be interested just to hear how you got on there.
Yeah. But that was actually Loserville. Loserville was Corey Feldman, Nate No Face, Bones, and Lincoln Park. Not
Okay.
Lincoln Park. Why do I keep saying Lincoln Park? Limp Bizkit.
So yeah,
It's
Limp
fine.
Bizkit.
Fine. Limp
That's
Bizkit.
yeah.
Everyone is going around posting the worst guitar solo of all time, which is Corey Feldman. Folks,
Yep.
I got to see it in person. Um, Corey Feldman is doing his whole Michael Jackson thing. Nate No Face was a guy with a sampler, just like barking into a mic. Nate No Face, or not Nate No Face, Bones was three different rappers that did all types of they did everything from dark wave to some synth pop to just some flat out hip hop and rap. And then Limp Bizkit came on. Limp Bizkit did not disappoint. My youngest son loved it. At one point, they invited everyone who was under 12 to go up on stage with them, and he was like, "Dad, I'll see you in a little bit." And I said, "You're not moving from my side, my friend, because we didn't just fly 3,000 miles for you to get lost at a concert. So come on, it's a once in a lifetime um, thing." Yeah, I understand. It's also once in a lifetime that I would be beheaded if I got home and didn't come home with you. So, yeah, we'll stick with the show. The show was good. It was entertaining. As Mark Striegel said, I think that they're leaning into the whole Loserville thing, into the whole. I mean, the last album was called Limp Bizkit Sucks. They're really kind of leaning into all that, and I got to tell you, I think with lawn seats, PNC Bank Art Center in New Jersey, I think it's somewhere between 25 and 30 that fit in there. And it was pretty full. I would say it was 90 something percent capacity. So a lot of people are still into Limp Bizkit, regardless what others will say, regardless how other people will poo poo the band. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it. I knew all but two songs. They kind of covered Bon Jovi, and they covered Rage Against the Machine. So there you go.
Hmm.
How about for you? You went to Rockwitch then.
Yeah, just before I say that, it's cool that you went with your son because I've been to a couple of shows with my daughter, just me and my daughter. Those are the ones you remember.
Yeah.
So in years to come, they're just fantastic. Yeah, so I went to Rockwitch, which is in Northwich, which is where I live.
Okay.
It's on every year. It's puts on a lot of small bands, mostly almost entirely from the UK. They're on the sort of classic rock circuit, all young bands. And they have a sort of acoustic night the night before, but I didn't go to that. I went with my wife to the main show. We went early evening, and it starts at 12 midday, so that there's a lot going on all day. But we thought we wouldn't last, and we were doing other stuff. We went sort of late afternoon, early evening, and we got in, and I think Ash and Reach were a band playing, and we sort of caught their last song. And then a band called A Priori came on, and they were pretty good. Typical sort of nice melodic heavy metal. Really like them. The best band that we saw, we saw the Karma Effect, which were a bit of a Black Crowsy type band. I really liked them. My wife didn't find them entertaining at all. So that was interesting. That I bought the album and she didn't like it. Um, but then we both really liked the next band on, which was superb. They were the second to last band on, called the Virgin Marys. Just two guys. So they're a bit like sort of Royal Blood, a bit like who's the other band with the two? Oh, White Stripes. Yeah. So
Right.
that sort of thing. Really, they use a lot of effects to help it along, but they don't half make a noise. They were absolutely tremendous. If you ever get a chance to listen out for them, they're really good. And it was just there was a headline act on as well, which is just I forgot the name of. We saw a few songs by them. They're very much an AC/DC type band, but really good at it. The name will jump out at me in a minute, but we had to go at that stage. We had to get home, and they actually came on an hour late because it was all running a bit late.
Oh
So
wow.
it was getting on past midnight, and we had to go for various reasons. So yeah, but it was what we saw was amazing. It was cheap to go. The crowd was great. Small crowd. All the bands mixed with you. They were selling lots of merch. Fantastic. Really enjoyed it.
Cool. And by the way, my oldest son wanted to go see was Bush, Jerry Cantrell, and Candlebox. He wanted to see Jerry Cantrell play, and I found out that he was only playing, I believe, like 8 to 10 songs and was only playing about half an hour, and I said, "Yeah, let's just wait until he comes back with Alice in Chains." So, because
Yeah,
that's what, the material that he enjoys the most by
yeah.
them. Um, all right, so dynamic pricing.
Mm.
Dynamic pricing is something that a lot of people are really annoyed about in the States. Bruce Springsteen was kind of the first guy that really reaped the rewards of that. So a guy that was a real meat and potatoes type of guy, and you know, a fan's artist per se. This last tour, I guess he's looking to finish off paying his mansions or something, and dynamic pricing is come into effect where the prices just keep going up and up, especially on seats that are closer to the front of the show. I know that when I picked up the Limp Bizkit tickets, they were offering discounts on certain seats for that show and for like 50 different shows that were going to take place this summer. Um, so they're the government, the US government is kind of going after them. So I'm assuming this is why they did that. It wasn't out of the kindness of their heart, but the dynamic pricing kind of came from Ticketmaster and from Live Nation as a way to gouge fans, especially post COVID. So it isn't kind of being looked upon very favorably in the US. How about in the UK?
Yeah, so the reason why I kind of mentioned this, Oasis were having their sort of ticket
Oh,
sales last weekend, for
right,
the Reform band, and they originally were at I think £160 for inclusive of all the fees or whatever. And so we were all sort of sitting there. Everyone in the country was really sitting there trying to get tickets for the what was I think 12 shows, and then they added a few more. And then apparently some people got through, and when they got through, they doubled the price as they were, trying to get the tickets. And so they were facing this dilemma immediately, because obviously you've got like a minute or two to decide whether you want to take
right.
that ticket. And they'd been on all day, these people, and realized now they're having to pay double for the ticket that they thought was going to be 160 quid. So it's well over £300 for the ticket. And so it's caused a furore here. The government's got involved. They're looking into it. Ticketmaster, to be fair, say that it's nothing to do with them. They say that it's to do with the promoters, that presumably what is happening is the promoters are saying to Ticketmaster, listen, if there's demand, we want to double the price. And Ticketmaster are just saying, yeah, no problem. Whatever you want to do, we'll
Yeah,
do, because, we take a cut of it. So, what are they going to say? Oh, no, we won't do that for you, because we're not going to we can we're shutting ourselves out of the extra cash that we're going to get, because I don't know what the cut is, but Ticketmaster are going to take that percentage, whatever it is. So who knows? The band themselves, the members of Oasis, obviously Liam and Noel Gallagher, they're saying that they have nothing to do with it whatsoever. And you can understand that's probably true. I
mhm,
mean, they have management, they have promoters, they have people that they just speak to on a Sunday about, how's it going, and they leave them to it. So, I would imagine the band themselves have never set the prices and don't even know what the price is, as long as they're getting paid the 10 million
yeah,
or whatever it is. So, so it's a terrible thing. I think the problem is, I heard just after this happened with Oasis, a Spanish football team does it as well. I don't know which one. Maybe or you can find out. But I think it's one of the biggies, and apparently they're doing it as well, where they're raising the price in terms of demand. So if this is a thing that's really taking off, where do we stop with this? Because it means that anything that people want to buy. If you wanted to go, say, to the Champions League final, you can imagine, that's a big sought after occasion. Or you wanted to go and see, I don't know, ACDC next time they tour because it's their last tour. Or what about the last Black Sabbath concert? Could be next year with Ozzy
Yeah.
Osbourne and Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler and Bill Ward. Who knows? They might play 3 or 4 songs together. Then it's a bit of Ozzy with Zach Wild or whatever. And who knows if he's only going to play 1 or 2 shows? There's a huge demand for that. They could charge whatever they like.
Yeah, so the team is Valencia,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is it'll just give fans more reason to hate the owner Peter Lim, who they've been wanting to get rid of for years.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
um,
You see, the issue is really it's not the price; it's changing the price while you're in the process of buying it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That's the issue, I
Well,
think.
I think both are really an issue because I mean, this is with the case of Valencia, they're a shit team. They're a team that has a big name, but has been close to relegation ever since Peter Lim got them. You
Mm,
know,
mm,
since he purchased the team, so it makes no sense to do that
yeah,
with
yeah.
concerts with some of the hotter tickets. Listen, everyone needs to make a living. It just depends on how much, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
But the thing is, if you know in advance what the ticket prices are, you can
yeah.
decide whether you want to go or not. Whether you can afford it or you don't. And also, you can check out all the various tiers of prices, and you can decide
Mhm.
you might go for the cheaper ticket rather than the more expensive ticket.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I just think if they're changing the prices as you're waiting and you've been on the line for 3, 4 hours, because
yeah,
seriously,
yeah.
for the Oasis gig,
Bogus. Yeah.
everybody, the whole country was sitting there for the whole morning. It was a whole Saturday morning. It was mad.
You as well is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I was doing it. My daughters were all on. They all had 2 devices on at the same time. We were taking it in turns to go and make coffees. Um, it's the whole procedure, and of course, we didn't get any. But we hear about these people who were faced with this situation, and of course, it's not fair because you've got 2 minutes to decide. uh, okay, I was going to pay 160 quid, but now do I pay that 300 odd quid? Um, it's not right.
So the members of the reunited Oasis, I'm looking at it right here. So it's Nolan Liam Gallagher, obviously.
Yeah,
Paul Bonehead Arthurs, who was the second guitarist on the first few albums.
yeah,
Paul Googsy
yeah,
McGowan.
yeah.
How do you pronounce it?
Or
What
was it McGuigan? Yeah,
McGuigan? Okay. Was he with the band early on as well?
yeah, it was. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And the drummer is Tony McCarroll. Was he also with the band early on? So is
yeah,
this
yeah.
okay? So this is like the second, like the Mach 2 version of
I
Oasis.
think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
'cause I know the
But but when they were selling the tickets last Saturday, they didn't announce the rest of the band members. It was just Noel and Liam. But that didn't matter because everybody just wants to see them anyway.
well, the other thing too is I'm sure that they're gonna lean in heavily to the first 2 albums.
Yeah,
The
it'll be a
third one,
greatest hits then.
maybe there'll be a track. I mean, what are they gonna play? All My People Right Here, Right Now?
Yeah, and they tend to play what's that one? The Importance of Being Earnest off the fifth album or whatever it is, because that's Noel singing it, so it gives Liam a rest, and it's quite a good song. And then they'll play one off the newest album, the one Digging Your Soul,
Okay.
dig out your soul or whatever,
Yeah.
because there's about 3 songs at the beginning that are quite groovy.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So they might play one
Um,
off that, yeah. But yeah, you're essentially right. It'll be off the first 2/3 albums, most of the
yeah,
songs.
yeah, yeah. First 2 are huge. So, I saw the, reissue for Definitely Maybe yesterday, and it was I I'm looking at it through my contact lenses, which I should have my glasses on so that I could see small print, but I could make out 169.99 for the reissue, and I'm like,
Oh,
yeah, that's a bit much.
yeah.
Love the band, love a lot of their music, but not that much.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So last thing that we were going to touch upon here is Testament.
Yeah.
You wanted to know what I want for a new Testament album.
Yeah, because I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit in the past. We've talked about Testament, obviously, over many shows in the past.
Yeah.
So they've turned up in sort of the best of years shows that you do. Um, because I just wanted to know what you think of Testament, really, as a band in terms of an album. So not in terms of seeing them live or their greatest songs, but what do you think about their albums?
I think that their albums are all pretty solid.
Okay.
I like some more than others. I think that they were on a hot streak between Formation of Damnation, Dark Roots of Earth, and Brotherhood of the Snake. I think the three of those albums are tremendous. I think Titans of Creation is a step behind those albums.
Yeah.
So my biggest fear is that I already know that they're not working with Andy Sneap. They're saying that Andy seems to say that he's busy with Judas Priest, which I'm not sure that I'm buying because he still worked with Accept. He's still working with other bands.
Mm,
I think it's Testament wanting to try to take the reins again. But that's what I think the difference is between Titans of Creation and the others. It's songs aren't bad, but they're not great. Those other three albums have great songs on them.
yeah.
That's the difference to me.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think "Dark Roots of Earth" is my favorite, and I quite obviously like the title track. Sorry, not the title track, but the first track, "Rise Up," which I think is yeah.
yes, it is.
There we
It
go,
is
same
massive. It is. Oh, we both have the
same one.
DVD edition.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it's great. So yeah, I agree with you. This is a great album. And I really like "Rise Up." I wish they do more of that kind of song. And apparently,
yeah,
this album, according to the band, is going to be more brutal in its sound. So they're going for
okay,
a really, really heavy sound on this one. But I hope they don't lose the melody as well, because that's what makes Testament great. But why I sort of asked the question was, I think the last two albums I really only like about 5 songs on each album, and then I think they fade a lot. I think that the second half of the albums really fade for me, and I've almost don't like them. I kind of think they're kind of thrash metal, but there's no direction to the songs. I think they're better when they do really melodic thrash songs, and they've got a bit of almost melody to them that you can get into. Whereas I think they just go on a bit. So I'm hoping that they bring out an album where they've thought about the songwriting a little bit more, because I think that's the problem for me with Testament. I really like them when they're great, and I
mm,
love certain songs, but found that they're going to do a cover again on this new album, but whether that's just a throwaway track at the end of the CD, I don't know, because they've done that before.
yeah, they've done it a ton,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, they did a more than one, I think, on Dark Roots of Earth. Yeah, I'm just looking now. Yeah, they did Dragon
yep,
Attack, Animal Magnetism, Power
yep,
Slave.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are, and over the years they've covered Aerosmith as well. They've
yeah,
covered
they did. Yeah,
Scorpions before. They've
yeah,
Judas Priest they've covered as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to listen to it. It should be good. It should have a few songs on there that are still good and powerful.
Yeah, I mean, they're great musicians. They got a new drummer this time as well, so that's
Yes.
another interesting aspect to it.
Yeah, and I don't know if they were going for a heavier direction because they had Dave Lombardo in the band for a minute and then a tour, and then he was gone. But so they have Chris Dovis in the band now. Um,
Hmm.
he comes from another thrash band, and I don't remember which. But hey, listen, if they have him in the band, that means that he can play
Hmm.
the part. So it should be interesting. Let's see. He's from Boston, and okay, so looks like yeah. Oh, his audition tapes are online. You can actually see them on YouTube. All right, I'll have to check that out later. Cool, awesome. So Jeremy and I will be back for probably the next episode following this, where we're going to talk about August releases, which we'll record in a few days. Give us some time to catch up on some of those albums. Jeremy, thank you for joining me once again. Thank you to anyone that's listening or watching the replay or the first play of this, because we are pre recording it. Thank you for your support. Don't forget the merch store, which we have available with a bunch of different t shirts, caps, bucket hats, sweatshirts, so on and so forth. On that note, we bid you farewell, and we will see you next time right here on Signals from Mars. See you, folks.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.